Welcome to Lecture Online. Now here we have an item that is huge relative to the existence of life on the Earth. The fact that the Earth has a magnetic field strong enough to protect us from two very lethal things. One is called the solar wind, and the other one, cosmic rays. Now the term cosmic rays and solar wind is a little bit deceiving. When you think about the solar wind, you think about maybe gentle winds flowing from the sun, but that's not the case. The sun expels particles, roughly about 4 billion kilograms of protons, electrons, and helium nuclei that speed away from the sun at thousands of kilometers per second. And they stream throughout all of the solar system towards all directions, including the Earth. And if there was nothing to protect us from that solar wind, those particles would slam into the Earth at least hundreds and hundreds of kilometers per second, and that would cause complete havoc to all life on Earth. Life simply could not exist unless we were protected from that solar wind. Likewise, from space, from all around us, we have what we call cosmic rays that are constantly floating to space, and those are primarily protons and electrons traveling at very, very high speed, some of the speeds close to the speed of light. And if they were to slam into the Earth again, they would cause tremendous amount of damage to life on Earth. So how are we protected from that? It turns out we're protected from that because of the magnetic field. Now, putting that into perspective, Mercury has virtually no magnetic field. Neither does Venus, neither does Mars. Of the 4 terrestrial planets, Earth is the only terrestrial planet that has a significant magnetic field able to protect us from that solar wind and from the cosmic rays. One of the big reasons why we don't expect to find any life on Mars and not find any evidence that life ever existed is because we believe that whatever magnetic field Mars could have had in the past would not have lasted long enough to protect possible development of life on Mars, and therefore we don't even expect to find any because of the lack of the magnetic field. That is how important that magnetic field is. And if we didn't have a magnetic field, it's essentially a shield protecting the Earth, life probably wouldn't have developed on the Earth and life probably wouldn't exist today. So how does that work? Well, it turns out that a magnetic field only is effective if the particles, they need to be charged particles, positive or negative, doesn't matter, if they come upon the field perpendicular to the direction of the field. Now notice that the field emanates from the south pole of the Earth, which is then called the north magnetic pole, and then comes around in all directions and then enters the Earth on the other side, in this case the north pole, near the north pole of the Earth. This is called the south magnetic pole. So the magnetic field essentially form loops that go like this, through the Earth, out again like that. And so any particle that comes perpendicular to that field will feel a force. Now it turns out that positive particles will be deflected to the right and negative particles will be deflected to the left, and they then start circling the Earth, and those gazillions of particles, billions upon billions of particles that have hit the Earth's magnetic field and now been driven around it, then go around in circles, and they form what we call the Van Allen radiation belts. We have 2 main belts. We have an inner belt and we have an outer belt. And so those are basically donut-shaped regions around the Earth that contain billions and billions of charged particles that just keep going around the Earth, around and around, because of the protection of the magnetic field. They don't make it through to the Earth. Now in some cases, especially when there's solar storms on the sun, if a vast number of particles leave the sun and hit the Earth, some of them make it through in the polar regions, because that's when the particles would kind of move parallel to the magnetic field and make it through, and they start interacting with the ionosphere, the upper layer of the atmosphere. They start ionizing those particles, and because of that, it starts to make those the particles inside the atmosphere, nitrogen, oxygen, and other molecules in there, it makes them ionize, and then as the electrons fall back down to the lower orbits, they begin to glow in the visible light, and that's how we develop what we call the aurora borealis, or the northern lights, which is an effect of the particles hitting the upper atmosphere near the polar regions where the magnetic field is in a different direction and particles are able to come in there and ionize the atmosphere. But if the magnetic field wasn't there, they would just keep going straight to the Earth, hit the Earth's surface, and it would create all kinds of havoc. So our existence is in big part a result of the fact that the Earth, unusually so for the terrestrial planets in our solar system, has that nice protective magnetic field to protect us from those two deadly onslaughts of particles, the solar wind and the cosmic rays. If it wasn't for that, we probably wouldn't be here.